Today we are going to be reviewing some of our figurative language terms that we learned yesterday in class. Up on the board here I have our language objectives and our content objectives for today's lesson. So let's go over those together so we all can stay on the same track. So our language objectives, you will be writing your own examples of figurative language. Our content objectives, the first one is we will recall the meanings of figurative language terms such as personification, alliteration, assonance, hyperbole, onomatopoeia, metaphor, and simile. And you will identify different examples of figurative language through poetry, song lyrics, and or literature. Okay, so let's keep those things in the back of our minds today as we're going through this lesson. And they'll also be posted, whichever objective the slide goes with. It will be posted on the slide, as you can see this right up here. So we're going to quickly review the terms that we talked about yesterday, and you can see that goes along with content objective, recalling the meaning of figurative language terms. So the first one, personification. Who can remember what that means? Let me see your hands. Personification. Very good. All right, so personification, what does it mean? Very good. Personification is giving human-like characteristics to a non-animate figure. Alliteration. What is alliteration? Let me see a show of hands. Who knows what alliteration is? Very good. I'm glad you guys are remembering these terms from yesterday. What does alliteration mean? Very good. Alliteration is the repetition of sounds in the beginning of the word. Metaphor. What are we doing when we have a metaphor? Let me see your show of hands first. Who remembers what a metaphor is? Very good. And what is a metaphor? Actually, that is a simile, but that is very good. We're going to get to that in just a second. Who remembers what a metaphor is? It's very similar to a simile, so they're really tricky. What's a metaphor? Good. A metaphor is when we are comparing two things, but we are not using like or as. And then tell me again what a simile is. Very good. A simile is when we are comparing two things using like or as. Good. Give me thumbs up if you are with me so far. Any questions? Raise your hand. Okay. So we're going to do a little think, pair, share activity. So our language objective that goes with this is creating your own examples of figurative language. All right. So first thing you're going to do is think of a type of figurative language that we just discussed and come up with an example in your head. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. The next thing we need to do is pair up with someone next to you and tell them your example. So why don't you go ahead and do that? Pair with just do your shoulder partner. Pair with them and tell them your example of figurative language. Do we have any volunteers who would like to share your partner's example? So I don't want you to share your example, I want you to share your partner's good example of figurative. Okay, those are all really great examples. Thank you so much. Our next little activity I want to go through is looking at some figurative examples through song lyrics. Our content objective that goes with this is identifying different examples of figurative language. So can you, first, before we look at some more popular songs in our society, I want you to think of a song in your native language that has an example of a simile or a metaphor. So my friends here that do not have English as their first language can think of a song maybe in Spanish that has similes. Let's take a look at some popular English songs now that we've kind of covered your native languages. Let's look at songs that we all might have heard. So the first one is a song by Bon Jovi. Hopefully you guys have heard of this song before. And it's called It's My Life, and the lyrics. Now that we've taken a look at all of these songs and talked about some good examples, we had some similes and some metaphors and even a couple of personifications in there, so that was really good. Oh, you're right, we had an alliteration. Very good. So let's move on. We're going to do a little snowball activity. So we've done this activity before with other things, but we're going to do it with using figurative language today. So the first thing, the language objective that goes with this one is writing your own examples of figurative language. So I would like everybody to get out a sheet of notebook paper. Okay, on your sheet of notebook paper, I want you to write down an example of figurative language. So you're not going to write the name, the term that goes with it, but you're just going to write your example. So, for example, if you wrote, she flew like the wind, you would not write that it's a simile. I just want you to write the actual simile. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to come back together now that you all have your example down on a piece of paper. I want you to crumple up your piece of paper and everybody stand up where they're at. And we are going to have a snowball fight. You guys know how this works, so you'll throw your papers at one another. Remember, don't aim for your head or your face or anything like that. So I'm going to time you guys, and whenever I say stop, I want you to stop and pick up the paper that is closest to your feet. So ready, set. All right, now that we all have a snowball in our hands, I would like you to I would like you to read the paper you picked up and decide what it is, what type of figurative language it is. Then I want you to use your partner that's directly across from you. So you're going to read your example to your partner, and then you are going to tell them what you think it is, and they're going to tell you if they think that you're right. So let's go ahead and do that and take about 3 to 5 minutes. So I'm going to walk around. Great job, guys. That was a really good activity, and I'm glad you all found that fun, and you guys did a great job at identifying those examples of figurative language. So let's recap before we move on. Have we successfully wrote our own examples of figurative language? That was our language objective for today. So thumbs up if you think we did that. Hands up in the air if you don't think that we achieved that today. Very good. It looks like everybody is on board. Did we identify and successfully define terms in figurative language? So did we identify all those terms that we've talked about and give their meanings accurately? Thumbs up if you think we did it. Hands up if you don't think. Very good. And did we successfully identify pre-written examples of figurative language? Thumbs up if you think we did it. Hands up if you don't think we did. Excellent job, guys. You guys did fantastic today. And so I want to leave you with a little song, the figurative language rap, while we are moving on to our next concept.